Comedian Marty Sheargold has parted ways with Triple M after facing serious backlash for a sexist tirade about the Matildas and women's sport on his national radio show.
I always unload the bottom.
You know what they remind me of? Year 10 girls. Now, I'm sorry to undermine the whole sport, but that's what I think of it, so you can stick it up your I'd rather hammer a nail through the head of my watch that. Got any men's sport?
Incredible. Marty has since released a statement saying, "I fully understand the gravity of my comments, apologising to the Matildas." For more, former Olympic swimmer and Olympic champion Libby Trickett joins us now from Brisbane. Lib, what did you think when you heard this?
Good morning, Shervo. I think I felt, other than uncontained rage initially, I was kind of absolutely shocked that this went to air at prime time on, a national show across Australia. And I think one of my first thoughts was, for all of those little girls and young women, particularly those in year 10, going off to their sports training, and how devastating and how impactful those comments would be. And for me, I just think what an absolute shame, because we have had such a beautiful shift, especially around the Matildas, who created this cultural, explosion of young women wanting to play sport because of how beautifully they did in the World Cup a couple of years ago. So I was incredibly angry initially, and then I started to kind of process that. And then I realised that, we still have a ways to go in terms of how we perceive the opinions that people have that are just entrenched in their thought patterns around women's sport.
Yeah, what would you say to Marty Sheargold and the very few, thankfully, people that are still trying to shove it back to the dark ages?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because you think that we'd made this big shift. You thought that this had kind of happened already and that we can kind of put it to bed and then move through it. But it clearly shows that there are still a segment of the population that don't value women's sport, who see it as subpar and, as a curtain raiser to men's sport. And if, and Georgie Tunney said this on air last night on Channel 10, that it's so important to know that, yes, this is incredibly wrong. These comments are hurtful and misogynistic and sexist. But, the Matildas aren't without reproach. We can criticise them. We can say they're not doing a good job. That's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But what these comments were not that. This was like, oh, get the women off. Let's put men's sport back on.
Do you know what peeves me the most about this is the apology? So he made an apology to the Matildas and the broader organisation. I'm sorry, but every kid that bought the sold-out merchandise in 2023 cheering on the Matildas, that went and watched games, that watched the 11 million people that watched on television, he needs to apologise to them, because they're part of this wave of growth and progression.
You said it beautifully, Shervo. I completely agree. I think when I saw the broader organisation and just the Matildas, I'm like, what about all those little girls who are, at home now thinking that is an okay way to talk about women's sport? And we know for a fact that 57% of the people who drop out at around of the age of 14 from sport are young women. And that is an overrepresentation of kids dropping out of sport by young girls. And these comments just do such harm in keeping kids playing sport. There are so many barriers anyway to keeping kids in sport, whether it's competitiveness, parents' behaviour, girls with periods and uniforms. There are so many obstacles that they have to overcome, let alone the broader, thinking that women's sport is just pointless.
Well, hopefully it's the last time we have to chat about this sort of stuff. Libby, thank you.